SMAS Mini Facelift Revision. Had a mini facelift 12 weeks ago. Initially, I thought I looked great, but after a few weeks and swelling had gone down, I started to notice the jowls had dropped. What could be the cause, and is this a simple procedure to redo? Due to see plastic surgeon in May, but just wanted some feedback and advice. Please look closely at jowl and chin shape. Plastic surgeon is board certified. What could be the reason for the drop?
Thank you for your question. You submitted your question with several photos, and you stated in your question that you went to a board-certified plastic surgeon and you underwent a mini facelift and that everything looked good in the beginning, but you're concerned that 3 months later that the jowls appear to have reappeared. And you're asking why this happened and whether this procedure is easy to redo. And you stated that it looked, of course, that it looked better in the beginning. So certainly I can share with you my philosophy about facelifting. A little bit of background: I'm a board-certified cosmetic surgeon and fellowship-trained oculofacial plastic and reconstructive surgeon. I've been in practice in Manhattan and Long Island for over 20 years. Facelifts have been a very big part of my practice from the very beginning, and I have I've participated in the many evolutions of facelifting, everything from minimal or mini facelifting to advanced deep plane facelifting. But essentially we're talking about some core principles that are important to understand. And I think that there's an opportunity here for you to also understand something that may or may not have been brought to your attention during the time of your consultation to help give you some insight. So for many, many years, the gold standard for improving the jowls and the neck skin has always been essentially the facelift procedure. And with every meeting, there was always doctors showing how their method was always the best and lasted the most time and had the best outcome. And I think that one of the realizations that we've had over the many years of the pendulum swinging back and forth over time, is that we have to understand that facial aging is not about sagging alone. And when you have a facelift, you are addressing the sagging. What are you not addressing unless it's specifically being addressed at the time of the facelift? You're not addressing volume loss. So understanding that facial aging is both sagging and volume loss. Now, that being said, when you have a lift, you're essentially repositioning sagging skin and muscle to a better position, restoring that position, but you are lifting against bone that has actually diminished. And this is very important to understand. Within the plastic surgery literature, it has been very well documented how the bones actually change over time, and that is very, very relevant when we do facelifting surgery. So when I talk to my patients about a facelift, I also explain to them that there are certain areas where it's very important to focus on, to be aware as to what is the limit of what the improvement can be. And one area is an area called the mandibular notch, the area where you are looking and seeing a jowl. In that area, what looks like it is sagging, you can also perceive that that area in front is indented. Now, that being said, you can at least understand how in our practice and what is now a strategy in helping people who are not quite ready for a facelift or who have had a facelift is to add volume in the area where there's volume loss. So in the mandibular notch, you can add fillers. Now, you mentioned that you had looked better in the beginning, and I think most doctors who perform facelifting surgery, and this includes oculofacial plastic and reconstructive surgeons, facial plastic surgeons, and general plastic surgeons, is that people often do look better early because swelling restores volume. And so the appearance of a person can actually be younger because the swelling can make them look more full. And as the swelling resolves, then you get to see what is the underlying structural deficits. So I think that it's important for you to understand that it's not necessarily a procedure that would have to be redone. Because as much as you may pull your skin up and say to your doctor, see, you didn't pull this tight enough, the reality is that the tissue will always reach an equilibrium, and that the doctor, the surgeon who's experienced, knows that they can only lift and trim a certain amount of skin and soft tissue and expect a good healing scar or a well healing scar, as well as minimize the amount of tension in the other direction to avoid pleating or tension lines, as well as to avoid a widened scar. And that is part of the art of surgery. Not too tight, not too loose. But you have to have a certain amount of elasticity, understanding you have to turn your head, you have to be able to talk, yawn, move your skin, and so there's an equilibrium there. So I think that the point of this is to, at least from what I would probably counsel you if you were to, if someone like yourself comes for an additional opinion, is allow for more healing. Allow for the skin to heal and understand that there is some degree of tightening that can occur as part of the wound remodeling phase of healing. Some things may get a little bit more laxed, some things may get a little more tight. It's just it's a body in motion. It's an active dynamic process. And I would propose that if you look at things from a volume correction perspective, your doctor may be able to help you by simply placing fillers strategically. In our practice, we do something called structural volumizing, and it's been very relevant for patients who are not quite ready for a facelift or patients who would never have a facelift to restore volume in some critical areas such as the cheeks, the jawline, and the chin, where the bone loss can be significant and create the appearance of sagging when actually there's a lot more deflation than there is sagging. And that being said, with that technique, we're able to restore an appearance that can in many ways look like a facelift, and I would even argue in many situations look better than a facelift. So we're living in a very good time where there's greater knowledge and understanding of the basis of facial aging, and there are a lot of more tools to help people look their best. So in my practice, my goal is to do the safest, quickest recovery surgery when indicated, and use fillers as a way to help restore volume where volume is needed to create the optimal and most natural look. So I think there's an opportunity here. I don't think you need to abandon ship, and you don't need to expect and assume that you're going to need additional surgery. Typically the person who is a candidate for a limited facelift generally doesn't need revision surgery because there wasn't that much excess skin or elasticity as compared to someone who needed a more extensive face and neck lift, who probably has some tissue elasticity that can maybe regress even further and need a little bit of enhancement. But discuss this with your doctor and explore the options about volume. So I hope that was helpful. I wish you the best of luck, and thank you for your question.